Hello, everyone.
We're back.
We are Sasha and the cat.
Welcome to our Level Up podcast.
Yes, we were supposed to do it yesterday, but we're doing it today because we're cool like that and we can do that. um,
We're also trying out this time slot because we might be transitioning to this time slot. So we did do a little quick poll on our Instagram asking what people prefer. And I think what we did some research on too was that Tuesday or Thursday was the best options. So we might start that for May.
yes. So either way, we're not going anywhere. We just are going to try some new things too. I think we want to come with more diverse topics and maybe even some fun like gaming streams and stuff. So if you've been watching, thank you. And if you have any topics in mind that you want to hear and or have any business questions, definitely feel free to ask us live on this chat or join our community, our Facebook group, follow us on Instagram, and you can always ask that way. We have forums on our Instagram, or you can ask in the Facebook group as well. Hopefully you're working on your side biz, whether it's just listening to us for inspo right now while you're cooking dinner, or you're crafting away or sewing away, or somehow you have your AirPods on giving acupuncture and you're listening to this. So.
In between patients, just listening to the podcast.
Yes, in between. Here we are, late night. We were on a trip together just yesterday. And I think it was
And a third human, which is one of our best friends from high school.
Yes.
So it was a lot of fun. He's from Montana. So it was nice that we all got together as original Miami natives.
It's so funny. They're like, where are you guys from? And all of us are like, like, we're all from different places, but we all used to live in Miami together.
It's really because we're not proud of where we're from. But...
Right, so we don't want to say Miami, but then... well, then it's too many places to list, so I guess we do have to say Miami. No offense to Miami. I love me some croquetas.
I know I did go to this like faux beach today in Ohio, and I was like, now I can just pretend that I'm on Miami Beach because I'm here.
This is it. Just imagine the topless
just a
women.
Visualization. Yeah.
It was very nice. If you guys have ever gone to Gatlinburg, which is where we went. It is basically, I feel like, the Disney of the South, which I know Disney World is more South.
Right.
But Florida is not part of the South.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it is. Chris and I were driving back. Our friend Chris, not my human Chris, we're driving back, and then we literally just like, it was like Disney. If anyone has been like outside of Disney where it has Wonderworks and go-karting and more mini golf, as if there wasn't already mini golf.
Yeah. I feel like too, like when we were walking around Gatlinburg, it was just so packed because that's just how it is like all year round, because that's where everyone in this area travels to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's like a nice hub, and you could do all the stuff without going into the parks, which sometimes going into the parks is expensive.
Yeah.
Not sometimes, all the time.
Right. But we didn't only go to Gatlinburg.
Right.
We went there for a day, but we rented a cabin in the mountains and had a hot tub and a pool table, which was the best part about that place. And we went to the Great Smoky. What is the full name? Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We did a couple hikes, saw a bunch of like waterfalls and creeks and things. It was super pretty.
Yeah, very nice.
It was such
very
a good
nice
trip.
time of year. I really enjoyed. It was also nice to have a break, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it was refreshing.
Sasha and I both have a big day tomorrow, and hopefully we can tell you about it next week.
That's so funny that our big days are the same day.
Our big days are always the same. I think a while ago I started a job and you started a new job the same day. We didn't even realize because we talked like 3 days after we started the job. And then I was like, wait, you started a new job the same day. Or you quit or something, like something
Right.
like pivotal.
A change, yeah. I know it's funny because my exam was originally scheduled for the 15th, and then I rescheduled it to tomorrow. And yes, I feel better because I had more time to study and stuff. But I also just feel like that was actually supposed to be the day. Like when the 15th was coming, I had like practically a panic attack. I was just like, no. But now that it's here, I'm just like, yeah, the full moon was this weekend, and now we're transitioning into this. Like perfect timing. The weather's warm.
Yeah, it does feel more like either the end or the start of a chapter, like right here. I know some people, including Sasha, might be like, it's the new moon, but well, I think that was yesterday though.
Full moon, but
full moon. Sorry, full moon. But I really think that I don't know. It was good timing for me too. I'm starting the job, but we just had this trip, so good stuff. And yeah, definitely recommend a cabin if you guys can swing that and you want to go into Gatlinburg. And the trails were easy to access. The food was good.
We saw a bear.
We saw a bear, black bear.
It was so cute.
So the hot tub though, I feel like in your 20s, it's like you grow up always thinking a hot tub is cool. But really, I feel like in your upper 20s to mid 30s,
you really appreciate the hot tub life.
It's a new life.
Yeah.
I feel like we just found any excuse to go in there and just sit.
I know. I feel like we were there most of the trip.
But I don't regret it because I don't have a hot tub, so I can go to a trail again, but I might not be in a cabin.
Yep. Same.
So anyway, today we're having kind of an interesting light meening. We're just gonna see what everyone thinks, including not just us, but if you have a thought about it, we'd love to hear it. We're gonna be talking about sensitivity in our society, and do we think we're too sensitive, or are we not sensitive enough, and where do we think it comes from? And we'll most likely be relating it to business, and if we don't, it's more of just a self-awareness thing.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if there's like anything specific to business I can think of, but basically Kat and I have these conversations often where we feel like we have sort of like unique perspectives on trending things. And I guess we're mostly talking about things that come up on like social media that become this like viral, like whether it's like an activist related thing or a trending thing. So we kind of thought of doing this topic just to share our thoughts about random topics.
And I feel like we're going to be treading lightly, but let's see how lightly we tread.
I know.
Let's see, team. I just think, our opinion, these are our opinions, and this can change anytime. And depending on the situation, we might have different opinions about different situations also. I'm going to keep it not really about any specific cases or anything like that. But I do think as a whole, I feel like I will be generalizing. But that's, I feel like, a topic in its own. Like, is generalizing always horrible?
Yeah. I mean, Kat and I aren't super opinionated on our social platforms, and I think it's because we like to understand everyone's point of view and be respectful and kind of try to see like all the different sides that there are. And ultimately, we're not like diehard, I don't think, over any opinion we have. We're kind of fluid in what we think. So even though we might sound super like passionate and crazy about whatever we might say, it's just because we're probably in a train of thought right now, and it's
follow through, yes,
yeah,
with our thoughts.
But I mean, ultimately, I feel like we're pretty understanding and open to things, and I guess we like to view things from a millennial perspective, since we're that generation that like, was kind of on the early end of getting cell phones, for example, at a young age, or being introduced to social media at a certain time period. So I feel like those factors make our perspective a little different, or millennial perspectives a little different than like a
It's
Gen
funny.
Z.
It's even called. I was reading this article, which I'll share in the Facebook group, but it was literally called the millennial morality, like this type of sensitivity that we're talking about, which I thought was funny. Like we
Oh
have our own.
wow. Yeah.
We have
Wow.
our
That makes
own
sense.
thing.
Hmm.
Which I know Gen Z is kind of leading a lot of this. So I'm sure maybe they just don't have a name or there is a name and I didn't research as thoroughly yet at the moment.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I kind of want to start with I was reading an article just to have a starting off point that was saying that there are a lot of factors that could be leading to why we're. I feel like as a general thought, I do think we are a little a little sensitive. I will say we are very sensitive as a society. Is it
Yeah, let's
too,
start with that.
is
So
it too sensitive? I don't know.
you're okay, but your final position right now is that we are too sensitive.
At
More
the
than just
moment.
okay. Okay. Do you think we're too sensitive in terms of how we actually feel about something or just in how we react to it? Like we're too easy to react, or do you think it's more of like that actually hurt our feelings and that's a problem?
I think we are. I think the topics are worth bringing up, but I think how we react is too sensitive.
Okay.
Am I saying that correctly? I think so.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree. I think I don't know. For me, it's hard to judge how important or relevant a topic is because I feel like there are times where other topics overshadow other topics just because it's trending or just because more people are sharing it on social media. Da, da. So in our world, that's the most important topic. But really, is it? Like,
Right. Not
it
that it's
is.
not important.
Right. But maybe it's blown out of proportion compared to other topics or problems that we should be looking at. And I think it's also, it tends to be those topics that hit close to home that people are sensitive about. Like, even just thinking of like, the whole woman harassment movement thing. I forget the whole like not me thing or whatever it's
Oh, me
called.
too.
Me too. And then the other ones that I've seen recently about child prostitution. I guess there was like this huge wave of that kind of like after COVID happened where people were just like super big on outing that kind of practice still going on. So yes, those are super fucking important. But there's tons of other things that I feel like just aren't as emotionally reactive to people, so they don't get the same like attention. And I feel like that's what shows like it's because we're being too sensitive, and maybe that's also not a healthy place to be coming from about those topics. Like, so
Well, I guess to me it's just like I'm always zooming out, and maybe if anyone here also runs a business, it's just like how can we affect the most change? And sometimes I feel like because it's so easy to whine now through social media, and because there's basically a protection, there's a screen between you. Like even right now, if Sasha has a super different opinion than I do, and you voice it, we have the screen so that we can say whatever we want, and you're not going to attack me,
yeah,
physically,
right.
Which I feel like then you just say whatever you want, but for what? Are you trying to change something? Are you doing anything else? And change is not going to happen overnight. So I think between social media and like just amount of information out there, plus the amount of humans in the world,
Right.
the whining, and that people are going to argue, say like, oh, well, if you don't bring light to it, then nothing will change. And I'm like, that is correct. But there are ways to do that. And there's yelling at one person and then there's yelling at 7 billion people. That's not going to do anything.
Well, I think too, I feel like in the early days, like I guess an activist approach, which is I think what people are trying to do by like sharing things that are trending or sharing topics they care about through social media or whatever, like it's almost like a passive form of being active on the topic, because yes, you're sharing information and you're getting the word out, but are you like also sitting down and writing a letter to your congressman, or like doing things behind the camera that you don't have to catalog and document because it's something important to you? And I feel like that's where sometimes I feel like the sharing and the mass media of the issues just feeds like the obsessiveness of it, and not really like making an actual change. I mean, I know the social media stuff does have a huge influence though, because I feel like a lot of recent cases, especially with like police brutality and stuff, have been heavily influenced by the fact that it was blown out of proportion through social media.
Right.
But there's times where I feel like, what if like, because the majority wins, right? Like let's say the whole population feels one way. What if that's not like the right way? Like what if that's not the most helpful for our species?
It's definitely not. I mean, even
You know what I mean?
raising awareness, I think, is good. I think for me personally, I feel like the problem is we choose extreme examples to bring things to light, but the people doing the extreme things are not going to change their mind. You're trying to change minds of people in the middle, but if you're in the middle, I feel like to enact change for people in the middle, it's a long-term thing. It's how I should speak to my kids about these topics, or not speak about it at all because it should not exist. Or like,
yeah,
I think trying to change extreme, like this person trying to change this extreme person's opinion is not going to do anything. And so bringing those to light puts all the people in the middle rolling their eyes.
yeah,
And then the people on the other extreme rolling their eyes at this person for whatever topic. And so we're back at zero.
Well, I feel like I watched the recent decision that they made on the officer that killed George Floyd, and that was like a big deal. And I guess watching it was interesting because everyone was preparing for mayhem after. Like they had guards and police and everyone just ready for whatever might happen once the decision was announced. And the guy was found guilty of all 3 charges, so everyone was pretty happy about that. But I feel like back in the day, right, like early days, like if you committed a crime, you were just like shamed by your community or like exiled or something. But now it's to the degree where like you can get a whole country or multiple countries hating someone for what they did in a moment's reaction. Not that it was right or anything, but I'm just saying like human wise, like it was just this like thing that happened within seconds and then now their whole life is ruined. But I just think it's interesting that we have that much influence and like power over like legal cases where like those used to be kind of protected, where like evidence was protected, witnesses were like a big thing to get or like find or whatever. And I feel like now everyone just can dive into whatever the case is, and it might be false information or like rumors, like the Cecil Hotel thing. I feel like that was a perfect example.
Yes,
of the
that's
influence
a great example
of social media, because everyone was invested in like this girl that potentially went missing or got murdered, and everyone was trying to figure it out. And they like made these people's lives living hells just because they like stayed at the Cecil Hotel one time 2 years before and they thought like they were the murderer. Like they accused them of murder just because they saw a YouTube
you're
video.
like chilling at home like, what is
Yeah.
or even OJ, like I feel like because he was so famous, it was so heavily influenced. So I feel like the other way, like he got off the hook because of that. Like I feel like media definitely messes a lot of things up, but I feel like now, more specifically with like the Cecil Hotel, is regular common folk having so many opinions.
Yeah.
Like with OJ, it was more like people would freak out. But I mean, are they gonna be busting down your door? I don't know. But
yeah.
Now with social media, it's like there's so many words being said. It's so weird to me. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's weird. And even the Cecil Hotel thing, I remember one of the things that people were upset about was that the video clip that they released of the girl in the elevator was altered. Like they cut a part of it out or something. Or they changed the timing on it. There was something with the timestamp and the way the video was playing. So everyone overanalyzed the shit out of that because they're sitting at home obsessing and fanaticizing some case that they're not involved in, some girl that they don't know. And they were like, I can't believe the police didn't post the whole video or that they did that and da-da-da. And it's like, because it's not your case. Like, it's not your thing. It's not your problem. Like, that they should do that to protect the business, the hotel, and to protect the actual integrity of the family of the girl involved. Like, what if the family didn't want that video released or shown to the public and now it's like blown up everywhere? Like, what if they're embarrassed by that? Like, there's just no privacy and like protection of like people under like, you know, the spotlight with like legal things or issues like whatever, murder and stuff. But
there's literally zero privacy, but I mean, that's a separate topic.
Yeah.
I think, you know, we've always grown up learning. There's so many different lessons, but, you know, you can't please everyone. Mm-hmm. And you're saying that you're being taught this so that you can move on with your life, right? But then I feel like we're trying to live in this world of just like, we're going to solve all the world's problems. It's just like, as humans, we're never satisfied.
Yeah.
Even if your life is too hunky-dory, you're like, there's something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Or like you find something to pick a fight about. So I think we definitely still have a lot of societal issues, but I think we will always have it. And I am grateful to at least be pooping on a toilet rather than in a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And being sold off to another person. Not to say that that's not still happening in some parts of the world, but I am grateful that in this country, that is least likely to happen to me.
Yeah.
And I also think, if you don't like it, go to another country. But
what I think there's also just with the side of like sensitivity or like being overly opinionated because it's like a sensitive topic or something. I feel like because that's the foundation of like why someone is saying their opinion, it means that you're also probably making a lot of like false assumptions about the people involved or about the situation itself or whatever it is that's going on. Like, because you weren't there, like you don't know anything. Like, you might have seen a video or a picture. That's different because that's like actual proof. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like we'll hear about a topic or a trending issue and we might just know like, you know, one case of that whole issue. And because you know that one case and you feel super passionate about it and you're sensitive towards that topic, it now becomes this thing that is a game of telephone where like now you're sharing information or sharing how you feel about it, but it could be like altered by the next person that hears it or the next person that hears it. Or like you make a post one day because you're angry, but then the next day you're over it and now you're remembered as that person that made that angry post that was anti whatever, and now you're shamed for it. Like, it's just, there's just so much with the sensitivity thing where I feel like there's also like a lack of forgiveness or a lack of understanding of just like people being people. And it's like, no one's gonna, I don't know, do things right, but it doesn't mean you have to like make it like the end of the world.
Well, yes, right or wrong, I think, like regardless of if it's right or wrong, I feel like people forget that we used to not be able to talk about politics or religion or money or like those sensitive topics in person, but not, and then like I feel like there's this whole thing of just like we should be able to talk about these things, but I feel like people forget about the fact that okay, we should be able to talk about it, but remember these are opinions, and like you want people to talk about it, they're talking about it, now you're yelling at them.
Yeah, I feel like the reason that was a rule is because they were topics that people feel strongly about, and they were trying to avoid arguments because typically people argue when they feel a lot about whatever it is they're talking about. So it's like it was for a purpose. Like there was a reason that we avoided talking about those things.
It's not like suppressing women's rights. Like this, it's like
you can't speak at the table. Like you can talk about anything else. There's many other things to talk about in life.
Well, I've noticed too, like when people have differences in opinions or religions or whatever, whether it's whatever the reason is, and I'll remember that. Like I won't remember if you told me you don't like peanut butter and I love peanut butter, you know, but I'll remember those types of opinions you have because it was so important. And it's like, do you really want that to come between people? And I feel like if you don't, there has to be a way to speak about it, which I feel like isn't talked about when we all of a sudden we're like, let's just talk about everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel this way too with like how we're treating men and the whole like feminist side of things or women empowerment thing, where we've gone so extreme to where like we don't like when they call us ma'am or open the door for us or whatever. And I always think back to this story about a guy I worked with. I think I told you about it, but he was from Southern Ohio, I think, or a different part of Ohio, where like they were very mannerly and they said miss and ma'am, and that was just how they greeted everyone, because out of like a sign of respect. And he was working at a Columbus store where there was like many different backgrounds and people coming through there, and he multiple times got like reprimanded by a woman when he would say miss or ma'am or open the door for them. And he was like, I mean, he was innocent. Like, he was just confused as to why they were like reacting so strongly. And I feel like I've always seen that with women where they're like, don't call me ma'am, I'm not old. And it's just like, that's so sensitive. Like, it's just a sign of respect. And who cares? Why do you care if they called you ma'am? Why are you personally affected by a stranger calling you ma'am? Like, why aren't they asking themselves that? You know what I mean? Like, we're so easy to blame the other person and make them change their words, make them change how they communicate with people, when for him it was a good thing. It was because he was respectful of women.
Yeah.
But now women are telling him to not do that and to call them who knows what. Nothing.
Well,
Say,
I feel like it's like for any topic we just say don't do this, don't do this, has someone introduced please do this. Like, you don't, let's say don't call me ma'am because I'm my own woman, but have you given me something to call you to show respect?
Yeah.
You know?
But it's also like an attitude of blame instead of responsibility, where it's like the question should just be, why did that bother me? Because why did it? Like, that's a real issue. Like, why would it bother you?
Well, so, I could see them being like, well, these are new times. We aren't in these old times where you assume I want to be called ma'am. You like, those were signs of respect back in the day. They're not signs of respect now. But have you given me new signs of respect?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess the anthropology side of me comes in, where it's like, no matter what the times are now, like, everyone's from a different background and culture, that like we can't say what's right or wrong because everyone's so different and because everyone has a different way of like being brought up. So it's like what's normal for them might not be normal for us, but we should just try to view it positively instead of this immediate negative reaction of like, oh, they called me ma'am, they think I'm old. You are insecure as hell. Like, you need to change something in the way you see yourself in the mirror, because that's not what it means. Like,
yeah,
it's just, I don't know. I feel like we should view it that way instead, because it's more productive. Like, we can't control what other people do, but we can control how we react. And I feel like we're losing that. Like, we're losing touch with responsibility for ourselves because we're just like blaming.
Well, interestingly, I was reading that article and they were saying that before we were in this culture of honor. So basically you had to earn your honor. So if you disagreed with something, you had to duel, and the responsibility was on you to figure out your own problems, you know? Duel, however, like through an argument or an actual duel. But then at some point it became this we were dependent on authorities. So we had like, oh, you need to help us figure this out. But then it wasn't just for high level things. It started being like, well, you need to help us figure out all these little things. So then all of a sudden we were all victims. So it was called this culture of victimhood. And then like, I feel like, that now no one is owning up, like you're saying, like, and just facing things. And like, I also think of like the boy who cried wolf. You can't just pick everything and, you know, you want changes in the government and they're just, there's so much that they're already working on. I'm not like saying that these things shouldn't be changed, but there's so much they're working on. You want to enact change over every single little thing that happens. Like,
to me, it's like me going into a restaurant, never having eaten in one. Maybe I've eaten one once, but I've never worked in one. I've never been around that culture, that community, nothing. I don't know anything about how a restaurant runs, but I see a fry on the ground or a roach in the freaking corner. And now I'm just demanding that everything needs to be changed and fixed, and that you need to fire the owner because the owner's responsible. He should have seen that. And I feel like with everything going on, there's so many components and factors involved in every single issue. And people just look at like the one person or the one issue. And instead of like the process behind it, or like what might need to happen in order to get to this like level, or what, like there's a process to everything, and there's like components to everything. And I feel like people are just kind of like getting upset and generalizing and then focusing on that one thing, when it's like, that doesn't help. That's not productive. That's not like a productive way to react to something. It's just an emotional way to react, which isn't going to help. Like,
Right. Well, and then I also feel like, going off of your restaurant example, they're just going off of, well, I read these reviews on Yelp.
Yeah.
Also, like, that's their credibility. And it's like,
Right.
before, you used to have to freaking get things approved to make books, to then use them as a source of knowledge, or like articles need to actually like be approved, and not just whatever this person wrote on social media, I skimmed through it and it's now real. Like,
Yeah.
and then somebody wrote, oh, well, all restaurants have roaches. And now
Right.
you're like, this is now a thing. Like, not saying that it's not a thing, because I will accept a roach is terrible. You should not have roaches in your restaurant. But also patience. Again, with patience. I feel like no one has patience.
Yeah.
Versus this takes time. And yes, it's not good.
Yeah, because there's a process.
But it takes
like,
time.
Yeah. Or even like, I guess with the legal stuff going on, or like with the whole police brutality thing, like, I feel like by hyper focusing in an emotional way on the fact that there's police brutality, and it's, I guess, targeting African Americans, I feel like, to me, the extreme version of what we are currently fighting for is anarchy.
Right.
And I feel like the correct extreme version of what we're fighting for should be actual reform in the police, in terms of the candidates they hire, the applicants that come in, the amount of pay they get, so that people are like held to a higher standard that go into this career field, because it is a career field. It's not like they're all these evil freaking crazy people. Like, people just don't understand, like, it's a job. Like, we have to understand it's a job, and there's certain things that influence the type of people that might apply to that job. So how do we fix that? Like, it's not just about persecuting every cop that's committed a murder, whether it's by accident or whether it was intentional. Yes, that's important, but again, like, is that's just going to lead more officers to not even want to apply to be an officer. So you might even get worse people applying for these positions, because no one's going to want to face the amount of public shame that we're putting on officers for what's going on. So you're going to get worse applicants, and they're not going to change their, application process, or, standards or requirements or anything, because they're telling everyone to defund the police, take more money out of the police. Like, well, they already don't get paid well, and that's part of what the problem is. Like, so how does that solve anything?
Yeah.
It's just leading to anarchy. And it's like, okay, you think that's the solution? Like, it's not.
Yeah, and it's without research, meaning, like, to me, it's like, you don't work in that. You don't know. Like, maybe they are correct and maybe they are not. But are you or have you been a police officer? Maybe. Do you freaking understand how the rules are made? Maybe. But also, if you've ever worked anywhere tying it to business, it's so hard to even get someone, let's say you're at the top, to get the receptionist, to get the person to fill things out correctly, to complete a background check that is thorough, that somebody cares about, Stuff like that, even at the lowest level, is so hard to complete, even when you work for a grocery store. Like,
yeah.
how it's much harder, I think, than we realize.
I think there's like so much trauma that I think a lot of officers, or just people in that field, go through, that they see, and it becomes normal to them. And to some degree, it's like, if you sitting at home complaining about police brutality would have seen half the shit that they've seen, you might feel different. You might see it a little differently, like, hopefully, like, with a little more understanding. And I feel like there should be more of a push towards that too, where it's like, do they not have the right help? Are they not required to see therapists twice a week or something to deal with the trauma they go through? Or are there not enough resources to even support that for police officers? Like there's still people. I feel like people think like, oh, that officer murdered them, they're awful, they're horrible. And it's just like, they're just humans. Maybe that was a bad egg. Maybe not all officers are like that, but they still need improvements made in that career field. But like, I don't know. It's just like, because you're reacting so sensitively and emotionally about it, it's not productive. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how far this goes and like where it's headed, because I feel like even when they did the live thing of like the decision for that officer, they had a person that was outside, like I guess a protester or whatever, like someone that was wanting him to be charged for all three. And they asked her like, oh, how do you feel like now that, well, they talked to her before the decision was made, and she was just like half crying, and she was just super passionate, super emotional, and she was just like, oh my gosh, like this is a day for justice, I can't wait, da da da, like, you know, saying really good things. And then the decision was made, and then the guy went back to her and was like, all right, well, how do you feel now that the decision was made? And she was like, oh, I was crying, it was so emotional for me, I can't believe it, da 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 da. Which, like, I understand, but this guy's life is also like screwed forever. Like, you should show some compassion, I guess, for everyone if you are that caring. um but on top of that, she was like, immediately after she said that, she was just like, well, this is the first of many, we have to keep going, there's got to be more of these. Yeah. And then she starts referencing like 6 other people that have died from police brutality that are like a new focus. And I was just like, this has been an ongoing thing forever. People have blown up about it, and now that it's done and it's not trending anymore, it's just like, oh, all right, move on to the next thing. There's a whole plate of them.
That is the thing that I get. I'm like, okay, this happened. He's getting his justice. And then now what? Like, yeah, some people are still posting about it, but I'm like, what is the long term here? Like, that guy is still, yeah, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, which, you know, is crazy. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I think he deserves it because he was on there a long time. But again, I wasn't him. I don't know what the situation was there. There was a video, so I do think that did not help whatever story you wanted to spin there. But and then now what though? There's going to be another dude in whatever state, and another that's also a cop, and it's also still going to be racist. And if he's racist against Asians, are you going to be as mad?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to those Asians? They talked about him for 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not the Asians, the guy that killed all the Asians. I feel like I'm offended. I'm Asian, you know?
Right.
And but it is what it is. Like, I feel like I'm offended not because he killed Asians, but because there's such a huge deal about the other movements.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, I have nothing against anyone in any sort of denomination of anything here, but
yeah,
technically there's a bigger population of Asians than there are trans people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but you hear about trans way more. Yeah, that's a good point.
But
that's why I just feel like whoever's the loudest and proudest is what we listen to as a country. And I think that's what bothers me the most is like, we're so susceptible to being manipulated and influenced and led to where we don't even know what we truly care about, like what true issues we deeply care about, like, because we're just clouded with all the stuff that's already there, like presented to us all the time, that like we don't control our thoughts, like the media controls our thoughts. Whatever we see on our phone is now what our mind is thinking of. Like, it's that easy, it's that quick. And we can see a photo, and because it's gruesome or whatever, we're now going to feel like, oh my gosh, this needs to change, this is insane, like immediately. But that's like those freaking old commercials of like, what is it, that Celine Dion song or something, where it's like the animals that are all sad or whatever, and they're like, please donate. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like, I forget the organization, but it's that common commercial. Yes. I feel like that's now like a lot of social media is just like, poor person, oh no, please help. But it's like, we used to make fun of that thing, like that commercial, just being like,
well, maybe that's the bullying
society. They're trying to pull on your emotions, they're trying to manipulate you and get money, who knows where it's actually going, like, you know what I mean? There was a little more skepticism and stuff, and I feel like now there's just so much of it everywhere, and there's such a deep need for people to want to help and like feel a part of something, which I feel like happened a lot more when COVID happened, that they're just jumping on to like whatever makes them feel like that is satisfied. Like, oh, I helped today because I shared this post. Or, oh,
well, I also think, you know, not to downplay the police brutality thing, but so many people were openly just ignoring COVID when more people were technically dying from that than they were from police brutality in the same amount of time. Like, I guess, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to help try to end this crazy pandemic, but you're going to just voice your opinion about 20 people maybe that have died in the last few years.
Yeah, or even like the police shootings. I feel like a big push was to like try to get rid of guns or change the laws surrounding gun rights. And I feel like that just faded away. But it's like, I guess the root cause to me of a lot of the things that we're sensitive about and like over trending or oversharing is like because we're not looking at the root cause of it. Like we're not actually trying to understand like how to prevent it. Like, yes, we're persecuting the cops that have murdered someone, but how do we prevent them from incorrectly murdering someone? Like, yeah, you can fight and say, oh, this person needs to go to jail and like spend all your waking hours just waiting for the trial of this person. But like, where's the action in just changing and preventing these things from happening?
So on that, there was, I don't know if you remember this, but Chris was telling me this the other day where Kendrick had a concert and he invited some girls up on stage, like two white girls, and to sing the song with him. And in the song, he uses the N-word. But then when they were singing, and they also use the N-word, and he got really offended in the middle of the whole thing. He like, stopped. Yeah. And to me, to go forward from that, you shouldn't use it in your song. It doesn't matter if you're black. You should not use it. If you want it to be obsolete, you should not use it. And you cannot get mad at someone singing at your song. And like, or if you are, then you shouldn't be singing. You shouldn't be, I mean, and I love Kendrick. I mean, he's like top for me. But that's what I think about that. And I feel like there's no, yeah, like you're saying, no
that's ridiculous.
Preventative. Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that point, I feel like that's when it's just a song. It could have been the word purple. Like, it doesn't matter.
But because that word is so sensitive, how are you going to get someone else to stop it when you still say it? Regardless of you're black or not. Like,
yes. But I guess that's why I feel like people put too much meaning into words. And it's funny because the meaning that they're gathering from these words is a personal perspective of that word that isn't true to anyone else except themselves at that moment. Like that woman hearing ma'am, it's her meaning of ma'am that she's upset about, not the guy's meaning of ma'am, because he didn't mean it in an offensive way, but because she took it that way and that's her meaning of ma'am, now it's bad. Change your meaning of it. Like for Kendrick, like change your meaning of the word. Like it's in a song, who cares? Like it's just so weird to me that people don't see it that way. I don't know.
I feel like the whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me is totally out the window. So, okay, so then on the same topic, it's like, is it an insult or is it criticism? So with everything, with bullying, social media, all of that, I feel like we just ignore that. We just go straight to insult.
Yeah.
Like it's always an insult. And it's like,
yeah.
And I mean, maybe now I feel like it is just because people are just so open.
Yeah.
But maybe if you wouldn't have taken everything as an insult, I don't know.
I mean, I do think in that respect, you know, when I guess I think of in-person social encounters where I'm with my friends or even in high school, I guess, just because that's like another time you're with different types of groups where you might change what you say or how you express yourself depending on the group you're talking to. Like you might mute a little bit of your thoughts on one subject because you know other people are passionate about it and you don't want to trigger them or seem offensive. Or you might like, you know, talk about one topic with certain friends that you all agree on and then change it depending on the person. And that's just out of respect. That's not being fake or whatever. Like it's just out of respect for the people you're talking to. But I feel like now people can just share anything at any time to whoever might read it, whether they agree or disagree or not. And there's a lack of consideration that comes with that because you're basically just saying like, if you don't like it, who cares? And if you like it, cool. Like, but I feel like I wish we could just kind of go back to like more meaning in what we say, where
it's like choosing our words
and choosing our words better, or like share an article. Don't share your opinion. Like, I don't know, just something different than just I'm upset, I'm on my phone, which could be any time of the day. And I'm just going to write this like quick 2-sentence thing. And that's all it could take to then just create this whole other issue.
A wave. It causes a wave. Yeah, I feel like bullying is definitely a thing. But I feel like a lot of it, bullies are never going to go away, whether you're an adult or a kid, because maybe you can teach your kid to not be a bully, but if they're a bully, regardless, what can you really do about it, And I don't have kids, so I don't know this, but I also can see the other end of, like, if somebody's bullying you, maybe parents used to teach their kids, well, you bully them back. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to teach that anymore, what are you teaching your kids? What is the correct way to deal with that that's not crying in their room? Or like, you should be teaching your kids how to deal with social media bullying, cyberbullying. Sorry, social media bullying. Like, teach your kids how to deal with that, because sometimes it's not in school, they're yelling at you anymore. Like, I just feel like there's no movement forward. And I feel like I feel like people should be targeting kids, meaning like parents teaching kids, because our generation, we're going to think like this till we're 80. And maybe, and then also it's like, you're trying to change how people think. That's not going to work. You can change my actions. Maybe if this person does not like turkey, they're never going to like turkey. But instead of, maybe every time they see turkey, they just stab it with a knife. Maybe you can try to just get them to stop stabbing it with a knife.
Yeah.
But they're not going to like turkey.
Right.
And you telling them to like turkey is going to keep them stabbing it at it with a knife.
But I feel like, too, I guess when I was growing up, I used to like being around people that had different opinions with each other, because I liked seeing healthy debate. And like, it doesn't mean someone at the end of it would change their opinion or anything, but maybe someone presented a great argument and therefore they thought of it differently moving forward, or they became a little more balanced or open-minded. And I feel like if people express their opinion and their sensitivities like through social media, but they were like, oh, it's because I read this book and it triggered this, or because I read this article, whatever it is, but then maybe said like, hey, let's all have a discussion whatever night and talk about this and have a debate about it. Like, I feel like that's more healthy and productive and meaningful in terms of having an opinion, because you're at least opening yourself up to what other people might think or say, and you're being a little more understanding. I feel like right now it's just like there's no understanding. There's just like, my way's the right way and this is how I feel. Oh well. And everyone should agree. And to some extent that is what's happening. Like, a lot of people are on the same train with like trending topics and stuff. But it's just so superficial, I guess, in how it's handled.
Right. Or they're understanding, but then they just feel the need to say, like, everyone wants to put in their 2 cents.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, if you understand and you understand that that's their opinion, even if you disagree, just there has to be a degree of brushing it off, meaning brushing their opinion off, not brushing the situation off, which is why I think the situations are not invalid. I think the how we handle it is ridiculous. And I'm curious to see in 10 years where this all goes. And I'm sure the few people there will still be pushing for change. And I appreciate those humans wherever they are. But I do think the majority are just whining, which I guess to me, it's like the whiners. The reason I think this is an issue is not because the whiners just want to whine about a topic or bring a topic to light. It's more about they're whining about so many things that the people who do care or the people who are looking at it just don't know what's important. Yeah. It's like, what is even, what's happening now? What's not? What's important? Who do I listen to? Are you actually in trouble? Like,
right.
Are you just having a bad day, or are you actually depressed? I don't know. But I'm not going to sit here and just like every freaking depressing status you put, right. When there's people out there actually struggling. I just feel privately. I just think there's like it's so blurred that you don't know what to believe in anymore. I think social media is heavily responsible, if not completely, for all of it.
I know. And I guess I feel like I feel like it relates too to like a lack of like true self-awareness. Because one, it's probably a post you saw from someone else that you're sharing or like that you're jumping on the bandwagon of. So it's not from you. But even then, like, is it only coming up when you're on your phone? Like, or is it part of your day and your conversations and like what you're working on throughout the day, your task list? Like, and I don't know that it probably is for most people. I think it probably is just something that they care about when they're on a platform that is flooding their feed with similar things, like,
or a topic to talk about with their friends, even if they're
or
not.
something that's popular. But I don't know. I guess overall, I feel like we are too sensitive as a society. And I even just say that from my example of the ma'am thing. Like, I'm not even talking about the extreme cases or trending topics, but the ma'am thing, I remember my mom being like that when I was younger, where she hated when people called her ma'am. And now that I look back, I'm just like, who gives a shit? But, and I guess that relates to the whole movement with like being non-binary or a transgender, or kind of like bridging between certain genders or sexualities, but which honestly I don't even feel comfortable talking about at all, because I feel like the sensitivity level of people in that world is way too high to even attempt to talk about it in an open way. Like,
which actually I really think the sensitivity of it, I feel like, is talkable about, not so much your opinion. But I guess I just think I grew up.
The people we'd be speaking to, though, in terms of
are
that
sensitive about it.
Sensitive, yeah, that like I wouldn't want to offend anyone, and I feel like they're almost looking for it, like they're looking to be offended.
I just feel like things. I'm just gonna go with a superficial part of it, which is meaning like trying to enact change. And again, I'm talking to this extreme, talking to this extreme. And you're here, the people in the middle I feel like we're in the middle. So we're like, oh, okay, you're trans, perfect. Now I have to be more respectful of that, whether I'm in the bathroom somewhere or, asking you, whatever. But I also think you want to change people's minds, but you're introducing the word they, which it's not boy, it's not girl, it's a plural.
Yeah, like in grammar, that was always taught as like an incorrect thing to use.
Correct. So if you really want to be a non-binary term, yes, you can choose your own term, but they should not be a word. It should be another word, whatever word you want. I've seen zer, I've seen other things. Like, why is they the one? So I'm just saying to anyone on the extreme side, you lost them. You lost them. Because you're going to tell me not something I learned in grammar as boy or girl, but something that I learned as singular or plural is now singular. So, no. And so what do I use for plural? And also, if you're going to use they, tell me what I now use for plural.
Right. Or I guess it takes away from their position, because you're trying to show that it's important to you and it's something that you're going through, like the transition itself. But you're just going to say they. Like, that's so,
right.
I don't know. I don't feel like it conveys the right message or impact that they're probably trying to convey to other people. And it's like, it's because you chose a bad word.
Right. So then I'm like, you worked so hard to start a movement, to now have your voice heard. And you're going to lose people at that. You're going to lose people at that. Literally. You are losing people at that. So I'm not undervaluing the importance of the topic. I just think it's like when you open a business, J-Lo, I think, had a movie called Geely. Gigli. It was a flop, mainly because of the title. No one could say the title. So you're going to put all this work into something, follow through, put time, effort, money into whatever it is, and want people to respect your life, and then you're part of a movement that uses grammar incorrectly.
Right. Yeah.
And you want to blame it on, oh, this is how society has been. But that one, the main word you want to use is not about how society has been in that way, in terms of male or female. Like, so I just feel like,
but I feel like the whole purpose of he and she and they is is to use it
clarify.
correctly in communicating to a friend or to the person or to whoever. When you refer to someone, you now know if they're he or she, or if it's a group, then it'd be they. But that's also where I feel like it's not super important. Like if someone straight up called me purple, like I wouldn't care, because I know I'm Sasha. Like I know who I am, that I don't really care what people refer to me as, because I won't be offended.
You wouldn't be offended if someone stopped saying he to you?
I mean, yeah, if they like also treated me like a boy or something, then yes, and I wasn't
Maybe how they
a
treat
boy.
you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it would matter more how they treat me, or like the context of what they're saying. But if but if I did look like a boy and they were saying that, I honestly wouldn't get offended. I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, but I am a girl. And then
I
would move the fuck on.
They is more equivalent to it, where it's unclear. Right. You're like, well, are you talking about a dog, a cat, a human, a candle? Like, what is it? So what is they? Like,
well, I guess I just mean, like, I've seen a lot of, like, profiles and things that indicate he or she. And I feel like I never used to see that.
Well, it was never a thing. Yeah.
Right, but it's like, your profile picture should say it all. And if not, like, who gives a shit? Like, I don't know. What's your name? Just like.
Yeah, what is your name? Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's interesting, I guess, in terms of sensitivity, that we're putting so much emphasis on that, where it's like we should just all be human. Like, I feel like we're amping up the meaning of these words, like ma'am or they or whatever it is, because we're being sensitive about it, when really it's like we're all just humans. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like, just be understanding, let shit go, brush it off. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like, be happy. Like, just. Because then it just leads to them complaining and bitching. But it's like, if you were understanding of the person that might have said he or she, then that might have not been your reaction. And then you'd feel a lot better personally. Like, you'd be sitting at home chilling instead of all pissed off texting your friends complaining about stuff. Like, I don't know.
I feel like it's used. Sorry, we have a comment. Language changes. Languages change generally. Oh my gosh, I cannot read.
Generationally.
Thank you. They, them is the most moderate change that could have been. They, them is used almost reflexively at this point in situations when you don't know the person too much. I do agree that it is the go-to, but I do think it's confusing. Like, so what happens if I am referring to
I think what you're saying is, if this is their mission and they is connected to that mission, does it effectively communicate that mission? Is that what you're saying? Where it's like, it's about identity and it's about
to me, okay, let's say you don't know who I'm talking about and you don't know how many people I'm talking about. And I'm telling you a story. La 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 la. They came over the other day. And you're thinking, this whole time I'm telling a story, you're thinking like 3 people came over.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So then I'm here and blah, blah, blah did this. And the whole time you're like, okay, but what was the other person doing? That's one example. The other example is, are they just human?
Right.
Non-binary. Male, female, TBD. Does that not matter? Maybe that doesn't matter. But I think even just the initial thing between multiple versus singular, I just think there should be another word.
I like what they're saying, though, about language changing generationally, and that it was like the most moderate change it could have been. And I do think because of that, there could be a 3rd or 4th phase of the language used surrounding this topic. And maybe that's like, they just chose they at the moment because it was the best option, but maybe they will find better options for it, or maybe transition into like a different way of categorizing it or something.
Well, I've seen other ones. I guess I just wish that would have been, in terms of a movement, I wish that would have been a go-to to pick a different word, because I think a lot more people would have been more receptive to it. I think the people in the middle, like us, like okay, you want me to say that? Yeah. But right. I can see some extreme people that I have dated literally roll their eyes just because that didn't make sense. And right. I'm like, you lost a whole group and you could have caught them. I know it sounds like a marketing thing, but I think if you're going to make a movement or bring attention to it, that is important, because I hate that we lose people like that. just because of that.
That's a good point. Yeah, like the extreme people.
Like literally
the
people
other
going,
side.
oh, they, them, whatever. And I'm like, that's so rude because these
Right.
people are also going through something, you know? But also I'm like, I don't know what else to tell you to call.
Right.
So there's like this thing. So anyway, that's just.
Well, I think too, like with the language is changing. I don't know. That stuck with me because I guess that relates to everything we talked about too, with like the ma'am connotation and everything else. But I guess that's where, to me, like words are just based on like the connotation you have assigned to them, and that could be different for every person using that word. Like, yes, there's a dictionary definition, but that all changes when you have a certain body language or a tone or, you know, a way of saying that specific word or the sentence you're using, whatever. So I think that's where it becomes difficult to kind of like put so much importance on words, even though that's all we have to communicate. Like, I just think we're putting too much importance on it. And I feel like that is increasing with social media and everything else with the opinions and all this stuff. But it's like words are really nothing.
So you're
like,
saying because we're becoming more sensitive, we should also be less sensitive with the words.
No, I think the source of why we're so sensitive is because we're putting too much meaning on words, like on diction. When like, we shouldn't. Like, it's
but aren't we supposed to care more about topics because we're sharing about them more? If I'm reading so many words in a post and I'm supposed to care about it, but you're saying care less about the words.
No, I'm saying I think the reason people are sensitive to these words that are being used incorrectly, or, you know, to them, they're receiving it incorrectly and they're getting offended by it, is because there's too much meaning on that word. When really the word isn't any of that. Like, it's a connotation. So it's probably just how you received it. Like if you grew up in an environment where man was always used as this like derogatory, disrespectful term that you only said to some old hag, right? Then you're going to be like, oh, you just called me ma'am. But if you think back, like, oh, maybe that's just my connotation of the word. Maybe that's not how they grew up using it. Maybe that's just, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be understanding, I guess.
Well, I think that's very applicable, like, because we grew up in Miami, everyone's calling everyone a bitch all the time.
I know, I hated it.
It's everywhere, and it has no meaning.
I never told someone not to call me a bitch, but like I would just feel weird when my friends would be like, "Hey, bitch," and I was just like, "Oh,"
and it was just used everywhere. Which honestly, that's a terrible thing to call someone, but people don't care. So I mean, I do think
because the connotation of it was then assigned as "you're my friend, I like you, therefore this word is now accepted," and I feel like we have wrongly assigned connotations to a lot of words, and I feel like that's why.
Okay, but I think the N word is a little bit different than that.
Not if a white girl's using it singing a song.
Right, that was a little weird.
Like, that's where you're applying the connotation of the word incorrectly.
Yeah.
Because she didn't use it in that way. Like,
it is. I just don't think he should have used it in his song. I just don't think he should use it.
No, I think people should use whatever they want, but just lessen the meaning of things. Like, just let it all go.
No, but then you just call. So when do you get hurt? So when do you?
I think it's about personal reflection. Like, if someone calls you a bitch or someone calls you the N-word and you're black or whatever you want to do, it's a white person saying it to a black person or who knows. Just ask yourself, like, did I actually fuck up? Did I actually do something that was bitchy? Or did they actually, like, I don't know. I feel like people don't even question it. They just hear the word and it's enough to set them off. Even though it didn't even match the situation. Like, it's like if a close friend of mine did call me a bitch because that's the new connotation and the new meaning, but I got super offended, never talked to them again because they called me a bitch and that was messed up. Like,
have you ever heard someone call someone something else in the context?
What do you mean?
I'm trying to think. Like, have you heard someone say ma'am because they are significantly older than they look, or
yeah, but I feel like you could tell just because the tone and the body language.
I guess it's just like, it's crazy because when we were in high school, I heard people using the N-word all the time.
Oh yeah,
like Hispanic, black, white, just like everywhere. Not to say that it was okay, but it's crazy that
I used to use it. I used to say nigs and I used to say niglets because I thought it was
what
cute.
What even is that word? How did you?
It was my word.
That word?
It was like when referring to like my younger friends or something.
Oh,
Like it was
man.
just like, and to me too, like the term, the N word, right? Which now we can't even say it, but the term itself just meant like my homie. Like it just meant like my dude, my friend. Like that's how I
That's
always heard it used.
crazy.
Like, and my brother and his friends and stuff like that, like none of them were black, but like culturally it was an accepted term when you're referring to a close friend.
But you would never say it to a black person.
They did.
They did?
Legally. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Because
Wow.
it's part of their vocabulary, like culturally, like they all were part of like the same upbringing or background or understanding of things or whatever. So it was just like
Are you referring to one person or multiple?
multiple.
Just kidding. Just saying that it is confusing. Not that it's wrong, but it is confusing. But yeah, I guess I feel like also people to just value how much influence they have, especially now basically everyone is famous because of social media.
Yeah.
And I mean Kendrick is very famous, so that's different. Which is rough because you're dealing with something in the moment, you know. It is what it is. But yeah, I feel like when I was growing up, I was just always taught to like brush things off a little bit. And like, yes, of course, you're going to take things to heart, but not downplaying situations, but just be aware of them. But like, I literally would be like, I feel like my mom is not racist, but because in Thailand, they're like no black people. So when they see a black person, even if they're Thai, they would just call them a black person. And which in Thai is actually the word Negro. But
Right.
I think it's so crazy that it's just normal to them because they didn't have the same history. And of course, it's different because you're American, which is why I think we should care a little bit. So the versus Cat, Sasha versus Cat does think you should care a little bit about the words you choose. I guess you should just choose what you say more wisely to begin with so that what you do say does still have some meaning, right?
Yeah.
But if you are going to choose to say anything, then you cannot be offended by everything. I guess is where I come
I just say that mostly as like protecting yourself. Like if you are that easily affected or offended by other things people say to you or going on around you, like that means you're too out here. Like you got to bring it in. You got to be here. Like
Yeah.
and be solid in like who you are and what you stand for and what you're about, and maybe look at other cues that we use in conversation, not just reading a post on social media, like your tone or your body language or the way you move your hands when you talk, whatever it is that could indicate like, okay, they did mean for that to be offensive and therefore I'm going to take some space from them. Or, oh, they're just saying it as their opinion. Maybe they want to just have a healthy debate. Like I do think there is a lot of things to gain out of like a healthy disagreement, like so much. I mean, you should almost always like surround yourself with people that disagree with you just so you can play devil's advocate and see both sides and just gain a wider understanding of the issue you care about. Because it's not that you just care about your opinion on the issue, you should care about the entire issue, which involves everyone that's a part of it, like not just how you feel about that one
And I
thing.
feel like you should accept that that is going to take longer than just reading 5 articles. Like I feel like it is a long process to fully understand something. I'm like, even for crafting for me, I feel like I've been doing it literally since I was born. And I don't know a lot. Like,
Yeah.
So I think the issues are very important.
Sorry, I just thought of like, before I moved here, in terms of like activist side of Sasha, because I go through spurts.
Oh yeah, that's right. Very active, Zika.
But two things that came up were Zika and how Miami decided to spray this spray.
What was it called? I forgot what it was called.
Nailid.
Nailid, yes.
And they were gonna spray it across everything just to kill the mosquitoes, so that people wouldn't get Zika.
Almost like a
Zika was
pesticide of sorts.
Yeah, like in the air.
Yeah.
And no one had a say on it. They were just going to do it anyway. And I was just like, you can't just spray a chemical in the air without like consulting the people that live there just because you're afraid of a mosquito biting someone and giving them Zika. And I guess like, yes, I understood the severity of Zika, blah, blah, blah. But obviously there was a lot of conspiracies about how bad Zika really was and how it affected pregnant women and all these things. So you get into this whole wormhole of opinions and like different sides of the issue. But for me, I guess I just, in my being, felt like, okay, putting a chemical in the air to fall on everyone and everything and what we are inhaling is probably a little unhealthier than Zika. Might pose some other health risks outside of Zika. So to me, it's like you can't solve a problem with a problem. So that was like one side of it. And then two was just like, okay, what mechanisms are at work that are in the decision process of this? Like, how is this even something that people are considering as a normal solution? So I went to I think it was like the town hall meeting, whatever it's called, but it was for Miami Beach. And that was where they were discussing the decision of whether they should do it or not. And it was
You made a poster.
Yeah, I made a poster. I was like ready. I was there. But I was also open-minded just to kind of be curious towards what was being said and what was actually going to be acted upon. And there was like a group of everyone that was there that were just like outsiders. And then like below that level up top was like all the people that were directly involved. So the people up here were just the whole time like interrupting, shouting, calling people's names. I mean, so, like just being really, really rude and inconsiderate. And to me, that took away from our mission because now they're viewing us as just these like loudmouths that don't even have the patience to listen to what's going on. So that was one thing where it's just like control your passion, like control your sensitivities when you're trying to understand an issue and make an actual difference, because no one's going to respect you if you're just like,
which I feel like is what the internet is, but yeah.
Yeah. So you already start from a downside, but then the people involved too, like once they had everyone kind of talk on how they felt about it, and they showed who was kind of like most involved in like the passing of it and the approval of it and who was against it. And it was interesting because everyone spoke, but there was this one guy who was just super against it. Very open-minded, understanding, and like focusing on just like, this is not healthy, this isn't okay. And he was also a lawyer, so he also had that way of
speaking,
voicing his And they went through every person on that panel and had them talk about what they thought and what their decision was, and they skipped him. Completely skipped him. And it was obvious. Like, he tried to interject and get his turn, and they completely skipped him. And he was like, what the hell? He even kind of called it out, but because it's like a professional setting and stuff, he couldn't do too much. And he didn't want to make a scene. But it was very...
You don't want to raid the White House.
Right. And I guess I'm just saying that because it showed me that there's so many other things at work than just what we see on the outside. Like, there's politics involved in all these things. There's people not liking other people. There's people getting voted into office or finishing their term. So who cares?
It's hard. I feel like
there's
it's
so
hard.
many factors.
It's
so
hard.
It's like, even if you have a strong opinion about it and you're sensitive about the topic, it's worth it to just dive further and do research and see what other pieces are at play. Because, for example, maybe that guy would have been the one to change the whole decision, but because he didn't get a chance to speak, maybe people should have been more activist towards supporting him or allowing him to find an outlet to share this stuff more, or maybe changing the dynamic of the people involved just because obviously there was some corruption going on if they weren't letting him speak, even though everyone else did. So I guess it's like, you can blame whoever, blame Miami Beach, blame whatever, like the doctors that say it's amazing or something, but you have to really look at like the details of the fabric to see like what the problem is. And also just do it for like more right reasons. Like, be curious, be open-minded, and just be there for the issue. Not necessarily persecuting someone or blaming someone or getting someone in jail, but like, how do I affect the issue and the outcome of that issue? Like,
I guess to bring it full circle is, we always say a business is a 10-year long-term plan, and I feel like movements are at the very least a 10-year long-term plan. So I feel like for those enacting the change, keep going, but for those that are waiting for the change, be patient, because I think everyone deserves their path, and whether it's a race thing or a gender thing or beyond that, but it is not going to happen overnight. That's for sure. I guess I think too, it's just like, you know, this is like totally irrelevant, right? But I am biracial, and up until I think maybe end of high school, maybe college is when I first started seeing you can check off 2 or more races.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's true.
I didn't even know what to check off like my whole life. And I know that seems stupid compared to whatever other people are doing, but I mean, the other topics that are being discussed, but I mean, I could see a biracial movement happening
Yeah.
where we don't fit in anywhere. And maybe, I mean, if on a form you can check off Hispanic or Latino or non-Hispanic and Latino, and that's its own thing, Asian is lumped into one.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Asian? Like, what?
So much. Yeah.
There's so many types of Asians.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Or like European. I'm Asian and European, but I check off white, which I guess is European, but maybe it's different now because white is American. So I literally look at that form sometimes. I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
So, these are just, I feel like we're all going through things and you never know what affects people. But I think, like you said, we just choose our words more wisely, but then also take it easy. I feel like you only live once, man. Just make your lives happy.
The takeaway too is like whenever you are that passionate or sensitive about something, it is taking a toll on you emotionally. So it's important for you to check in with yourself, maybe before you do that post or before you share that thing, and just ask yourself, like, why do I care so much about this? What is this actually triggering in me? Or why am I actually bothered in it? Or is this the most effective way to handle this issue that I do care deeply about? Like, I guess just questioning a little more about ourselves instead of just blaming or putting stuff externally. Like, I just think we should balance that out by
why
going
do I care
internal.
so much? Or, you know, like you don't like what they're posting, just unfriend them. I feel like it's funny because it's that easy to say something, but it's also that easy to not look at what they're posting anymore if you don't like it.
Yeah.
So I just think I'm an advocate of being happy, if anyone knows me. So do what you got to do to be happy. And I just think, you know, if there are people that voice opinions that I don't like and it's like in my face all the time, I'm not going to change their opinion. I'm just going to unfriend them.
Yeah.
So just even if I see them in real life and I'm still cordial with them, I just don't want to look at their posts or whatever. But this was a very interesting topic.
I know.
And I think, you know, we should also be open to changes. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years, next 20 years, the rest of our lives. Like, you know, tech is only going to, I feel like, be more present in our lives. So, those kinds of changes are crazy, man. I just think it's so funny. Like, even in terms of like the gay thing, just gay in general, but not the other segments. I feel like in high school, you would join. This is so weird. I just like thought of how this worked out. I mean, if you were in theater or dance and you were a guy, you were gay.
Right.
Right? Which is totally wrong. You shouldn't think that. But I almost think they would go into those segments, well, maybe because they were great at it, but they also felt more comfortable that it was okay. Like if you were in band, I feel like by the time I was, there were a few gay girls. And I was just like, I think they just felt comfortable also because people weren't judging them in band. So just find your group too, you know, like if you're, I feel like if I'm really into being Asian, I would find an Asian. I'm lying. I'm literally talking to someone who's part Asian and part white because I am part Asian and part white. And I feel very comfortable talking to Sasha. And I will keep talking to Sasha. I moved out of Miami because I felt uncomfortable because I didn't speak Spanish. I'm not going to go and make everyone speak English there. I just left. So there's also that. So I think whatever makes you happier in life. And if, you know, if you do have a best friend that isn't understanding, like, oh, hey, man, don't use the N word. Or, hey, can you please call me they? And your friend understands that, that's all you need, man.
Yeah, I agree.
That's all you need. Like,
Yeah, just be more selective.
Sasha literally said, "Can you please call me Jade this year?" And
Oh yeah.
I changed her name on my phone, and her name is Jade. So if she feels
But now
uncomfortable,
I want you to call me they.
I can call you they. I just can't tell you that there's gonna be. It's not you that would have the
Confusion.
problem. It's when I talk to other people.
Yeah.
The other people would be confused as to who I'm talking about. I'll call you they though. You want me to call you they?
I'm just kidding.
For now, who knows? I guess I've also seen like my cousin is trans and we don't. Well, I feel like. See, that's how little I even know. It's like trans woman. He was a he, but I don't know if he is now a she. I guessed from the photo, you know, and she doesn't talk to the family anymore, but I didn't know why. Like this happened a long time ago. We were like 16 and I didn't find out till like 10 years later. But I was like, I kind of appreciate that there is attention being brought to it because maybe my cousin would have felt more comfortable, you know? But it's funny
Yeah.
because they felt like that. She felt like that. Even living in a country that accepts trans people. Thailand is the #1 trans capital. So that I'm like,
Right.
people will feel how they want to feel no matter what. I'm like, you were literally living in the one country that accepts this lifestyle.
I mean, part of me just feels
Or
like
your
if
gender.
you have trouble feeling accepted
It could be from
or
a lot of
loved
things.
or appreciated, you should just see a therapist. Like it's
Or
not
get out of
it's
the
not gonna help you
situation.
to just change the word or tell someone to change what they call you. Like it's probably not gonna do it. It's not gonna be enough. Like, and I feel like people aren't even seeing it from that lens of just like, oh, maybe I should just seek help for this issue because I am offended. I wonder why. Like,
Well, yeah, and I guess for me, it's like everyone thinks I'm Hispanic.
mm-hmm.
And my whole life, I'm literally saying to people, but no, people just talk to me in Spanish. And yes, that's partly a Miami thing, but I think that's partly because I look Hispanic. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with the Spanish language or Hispanic culture, but if I don't like it, I got out.
Yeah.
So, and there's no way. I mean, yes, I could tell people. I literally have repeated. I'm half Asian. I'm half Thai, or half French and half Thai. Like I literally said that to more people than I can remember, just because they were talking to me in Spanish. And I will never get
Right.
tired of it because this is the life that I have. And I
Yeah.
feel like if you do want people to call you they, you also have to be comfortable with saying, "Please call me they," your whole life. Like, and it's okay. It's okay.
Right.
That's not a bad thing, you know? So I just hope everyone has a positive outlook on their life, whether they're seeking mental health help, like you're saying, Sasha, or just being more mindful of things they say, or just unfollow the people you don't like.
Yeah.
It's
I think it's
okay.
just acceptance and just not getting so attached to words and things people say and whatever else is kind of going on. Like just always checking in with yourself. I don't know. I feel like the biggest problem is just that people don't check in with themselves enough.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess I was like, why am I so bothered that people talk to me in Spanish?
Right.
And I feel like we used to say it's because we're in America, they should learn English, but there is no official English language. So I'm like, okay, well, it's not that, and it's not going to go away. Like, they're not going to stop, speaking Spanish. And I don't even want them to. I feel like it's unique, to
Yeah.
be there. And that's kind of the main language. But at this point, I wasn't going to learn it. And I was tired of saying that to people. So I was like, why am I so bothered? And that's crazy. I think it's just because I had to keep repeating myself. So I was like, well, if it's just that, then
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
just
I
keep
think there's
repeating
also
myself.
like when you're younger, I feel like you're more likely to have these like strong convictions because you're new
Yes.
to the world. So you thought what you've seen thus far is what the world is. And so anytime you see something that doesn't fit it, you're just like, oh, well, that's rude. Or, oh, well, that's inconsiderate of them, or, you're so easy to blame the other person or like see like how wrong they are. But I feel like in time of just getting older and exposing yourself to more people, more communities, more experiences, you realize everyone's just a product of their upbringing. And so it's almost like no one means anything in a bad way, because it's their programming. Like, you have no idea what that looks like until you know them for probably years. And even then you might not know. Like, and I feel like I did used to think when I was in Miami, when I was younger, I would get so pissed off when people would start talking to me in Spanish. And I would kind of cop an attitude just because I was like, well, you should know English. You're in America. And I guess now that I'm looking back on that like young opinion, I'm just like, oh, it makes sense, because to them, they may have not even known English, number one, but number two, that's just how they are friendly. Like it might not even have been a bad place from them, like a bad intention. And I feel like we're so quick to think it's like a bad thing or a bad intention or rude or inconsiderate, when really it's just a product of their upbringing and a product of who they are. And it doesn't match the product of who you are. Oh, well, like, it's okay. You're not going to have like a bar fight over it.
Yeah. I feel like world peace is a dream, team. World peace is a dream. And we hope that we can strive to get there. But I think it is a dream. And it's good to keep fighting for it. But we will always find something to fight about. And I am happy that it's not me sitting in a wagon for 5 days to claim a piece of land. And that's what I have to fight about. So
yeah, we're spoiled.
We are very spoiled and entitled. And I do think there's value in the issues. But
be thankful.
Be thankful for where you are. And if you're not in a good situation, find the help and get out of it. Just get out of it.
Yeah.
Take your kids. Get out. Move to a new city.
Start over. There's so many options.
There are options, team. But anyway, that was a little bit more of an opinion base, and we hope everyone doesn't hate us. We just wanted to share thoughts there. I try to be as neutral as possible.
Yes.
Because I am neutral, honestly. And I want to make people happy, and I think that's like my whole life. So I'm like, whatever you want me to do or not do that makes you happy, okay. And then if it makes me uncomfortable, then we don't have to be friends.
Right.
But for the most part, I think it's okay. Like, I've never had to unfriend people because of that. But
right.
Anyway, we'll be back actually in a couple
2 weeks.
Yeah. So definitely give us your thoughts, even if it's after the chat, and feel free to ask us any biz questions also. And I think the next time we come, we'll be doing a live business feature. So
yes,
tune in then. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.